If you're watching this video, there's a good chance that gambling is causing you a lot of misery. More importantly, however, it's probably stopping you from finding happiness. It's stopping you from finding sort of fulfillment and contentment and peace within your life. And what I want to talk about today is sort of the flip side of that, and how recovery and quitting, stopping gambling, whatever you want to call it, can actually cause some sort of turmoil, some sort of upset in your life, which will at least temporarily make you feel like you're in a worse situation. This can ultimately lead to lapses and relapses and this sort of cycle of addiction that we perpetuate. So that's what I want to talk about today. Firstly, just want to say hi, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. If you're new around here, my name's Phil, welcome. If you're not new around here, then welcome back. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. I do, if you'll just entertain me for 1 minute, want to talk about my Patreon link, which is down in the description below. A couple of people who recently have very, very kindly sent me these super thanks on YouTube, which are effectively a sort of donation to help support the channel. And it's only just come to light to me just how much of a proportion of this YouTube decide to keep for themselves. So I'm not expecting people to contribute or sign up or whatever, but if you do wish to support the channel, then can I ask you to use the Patreon link in the description below? Purely because I think if you are kind enough to help support me in that way, then you probably want more of the money to come to me and less to YouTube, I presume. But like I say, it's no obligation. It's there if you want it. And yeah, you know, at the moment, I'm not actually offering anything additional to Patreons because I don't want to do a disservice to people who just support me by watching the videos and subscribing and liking and all that normal YouTube stuff, you know. It would be very remiss of me to say, I've got this great tip on how to get into recovery, but you can only hear it if you give me £3 a month, because, yeah, that would be very counterproductive and not in line with what I'm trying to do here. So thank you for, you know, humouring me there, and let me crack on with the subject of today's video. When we quit gambling, we often find that we have a short period and then we go back, we lapse and we relapse. And one of the core reasons, what I want to talk about today, is because we suddenly find ourselves with an abundance of resource which we have been significantly short of before. Now, this isn't, in this instance, money, although we may find in the short term at least we have a small amount more cash available to us because we're not instantly losing at gambling as soon as we come into any money. I am talking about the most important resource, the most precious one, and the biggest loss we have through gambling addiction, and that is time. Time is the one thing we can't get back, and as I've said many times in many videos, it is the biggest loss we have when we pursue a life of gambling. However, whilst the regaining of time and, you know, the opportunity to use that time to a much better end is ultimately in the medium to long term going to be the biggest gain from getting into a lasting recovery, in the short term, immediately after we make the decision to stop gambling, it can be a curse. It can actually force us back into our old bad habits. Now, people much smarter, cleverer than me would tell you, and not without good reason, that the best thing to do when you give up a bad habit, such as a gambling addiction, is to replace it with a good habit. So rather than spend, you know, however long per day gambling, you spend the same amount of time in a gym, or building a business, or reading a book, or doing something very constructive. Now, of course, in the long term, this is a brilliant way to make your life better, quitting a bad habit and replacing it with a positive one. However, here's the problem. When we quit gambling, what we are effectively doing is foregoing the path of least resistance. We are stopping a crutch. We are preventing ourselves from falling into what has become an incredibly comfortable habit. By stopping gambling all by itself, we are putting ourselves at a sort of position of discomfort. We no longer have that crutch to lean upon. If we decide we're going to do something highly positive and we're going to replace that with a positive habit, for example, as I spoke about in a recent video, go to the gym, not only are we foregoing something that's comfortable, familiar, and yes, of course, highly addictive, we are trying to force ourselves to do something that takes us out of our comfort zone, that puts us into an uncomfortable position, something that is hard to do. Now, all the great, you know, philosophers and motivational speakers, people like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan and people like that will tell you that actually forcing yourself to do hard things is incredibly valuable. It's a great way to build new habits, and it's a great way to ultimately find contentment, happiness and purpose in your life. And this is totally true, and I will not discredit those people at all. However, in the very short term, the essential thing is that you don't gamble. If you're used to going to the bookies every day after work and playing the fob tees, just as an example, and you say, right, I'm not going to do that anymore, I'm going to go to the gym. or I'm going to go and spend 2 hours, building a business online. The prospect of doing this hard thing may be enough to make you go and do the easy thing instead. Whereas if you can find something that's suitably easy as a sort of at least a temporary alternative to your bad habit, then you've taken one step away from the bad habit. We can build the good ones in the future. So if rather than go and spend 2 hours in the bookies on the fob tees, you go home and you play video games for 2 hours. Yes, realistically, you've not achieved anything constructive, but you've not done anything that's overly destructive either. Time is, like I say, the best thing we get when we get into a lasting recovery. When we quit gambling, we get time back. And in time, we can use that for something far, far better than the bad habits we've developed. But in the short term, it is really a curse. We find ourselves getting bored. And whilst we feel obliged to find something to fill that time, it's not possible just to suddenly pick up another hobby. Go out and start a business, pick up, take up whatever. It doesn't work like that. Human psychology doesn't work like that. You can't go from a comfortable, if destructive, rut to suddenly being super motivated about something you previously cared not a jot about. So yes, in time, do something more positive. But in the short term, particularly if you do find yourself with a bit of extra money in your pocket, find anything you can do with that time that's going to stop you from gambling. Because otherwise, instead of doing the hard thing, you'll just go back into doing the easy thing. Also, something very, very important to talk about here. Yes, you'll get your time back, and in time you'll get your money back, and you may even rediscover relationships and other things that you lost through your gambling addiction. However, don't expect that you're going to stop gambling and the next day you're going to feel great. All right, it's like the gym analogy I used previously, but it's about any addiction. You give up alcohol, you're going to wake up the next day, you're probably going to feel really, really hungover. Okay, you're probably going to sleep really badly, your skin's probably going to really suffer, and in the short term, you're going to be miserable. Okay, the same obviously is true with a lot of narcotics. Withdrawals can be terrible. Like those things, gambling withdrawal is similar. Yes, there are less sort of physical signs of withdrawal. However, there are a lot of mental and psychological fallout. There is a lot of fallout from quitting gambling. Like I say, boredom. Apart from the fact that you've got a gambling urge, you've got this time and you don't know what to do with it. You will feel very low mood at points. You'll probably actually struggle to sleep sometimes. All right, but rest assured from someone who knows that, like, withdrawal symptoms from any other addictive behaviour, these too shall pass, and it is merely just a plot on your recovery, ultimately, which will be I was going to say the best thing you can do, but realistically, if you have a destructive gambling addiction, it is the only thing you can do. All right, if you have a gambling addiction, recovery is really, dare I say, the only option if you are to regain any control over your life and indeed ensure that life is lived for as long and as well as is humanly possible. So I just think it's important to say that, when I stopped gambling, I had so much time, and it's not just the time you actively spend gambling. You think, well, actually, I normally only gamble for like an hour a day, but how long do you spend thinking about gambling? How long do you spend reeling after a gambling loss and having a go at yourself and all the rest of it? How much time do you waste because you've gone to bed early because you're in a really foul mood? How much time do you spend watching other people gamble? This is all time you'll get back, and initially, as I say, you will have absolutely no idea how to spend it, what to do with it. Okay, but just do something with it. Don't feel you have to do something overly constructive, because whilst that's ultimately the best thing to do, replace a bad habit with a good one, all right, don't expect it to come overnight, and trying to force it will merely push you back into the arms of a crutch and into that comfortable destructive rut you're trying to get yourself out of. Hope that helps. Thanks very, very much for watching. As I say, thank you to everyone who supports me, whatever form that support comes in. Like I say, the Patreon link is below. But if you just want to support me by watching the videos, liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, that's really appreciated. Helps build the community, helps motivate me as well to make these videos. And like I say, hopefully reach more people and do at least a tiny little bit of good. But until next time, stay safe, stay sane, and of course, whatever it takes, most importantly, stay gamble free. And I'll speak to you all again very soon. Take care. Cheers.